Hello there, this is Jennifer McGuire for Studio Calico. This is my monthly technique video using their January kit. In this video I'm going to show you a fun way of creating chevron borders, like a zigzag border. And again, this features the January kit and all the add-on kits. So it's really fun because all the papers go together so well. And this is the card set we're going to do, creating this chevron border, the zigzag border here, using pattern papers. Now you can change this up and make it a great border for a scrapbook page too, but I wanted to show you on a quick set of cards. So I went through the January kit and the add-ons and picked out some of my favorite papers, and I'm going to cut these into thin strips. Now you can change this up completely if you want to, so you can get wider zigzag, but I'm doing 1/4 inch strips here, so 1/4 inch strips. You could change this up for bigger zigzags if you'd like. But I'm just going to cut a bunch of 12 inch by 1/4 inch strips from several different pattern papers I like from these kits. Now I've taken a piece of scrap white paper here. This happens to be 5 inches by 5 inches, but it really doesn't matter what size you pick. And I'm covering it pretty generously with adhesive here. This helps to make the border go together quickly and stay together. So I'm taking one of my strips and I'm stretching it from one corner to another. It's easier to do the angle here as opposed to cutting angles later. So just trust me. And I'm going from one corner to another. And then I'm just going to start lining up my pattern paper strips next to this until I've covered this whole piece of paper. So you could use glue stick for this if you don't want to use up your tape runner or whatever, but I just use my favorite tape runner. So I'm just going to line these up, matching each one up real nicely. But again, notice that one of my pattern paper strips went from one corner to another so that I know it's completely on the 45-degree angle. So I just keep going and adding strip after strip, and you want to keep a pattern to it. So you can see I have a pattern to this. And I'm keeping all my strips at one end, all my long ends off to one side, so that I can cut those off and save those and use them on another piece. So now I've covered up that whole white cardstock. Again, it's 5 by 5, but you can do any size here. If you want a longer border, you can do a bigger piece. And I'm going to cut off all of the extra here, and all of those long strips on this side I can use for another project. So there we go. We've got this paper. Basically, we've created our own diagonal paper. So now I have another 5 by 5 piece, and I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to create it completely the same, stretching across here, and I'm going to keep my patterns in the same order. So I'm starting with this dark blue pattern here, and then I'm going to use the green next, which is what I did on the piece before. So all of these strips are 1/4 inch. You want to make sure that they're all the same so this goes together well. So after I trim it, I end up with two pieces. These are actually the exact same, and I've just rotated one. So you can see how they meet up there nicely in the middle. But what I'm going to do is cut this into some straight strips. First, I just want to show you how you can cut them in 1 inch strips. So I'm cutting these into 1 inch strips and match them together to get a really wide zigzag. So I'm just going to keep cutting these into 1 inch strips, and I'll do the same with the other 5 by 5 piece. Again, these two 5 by 5 pieces I have were exactly the same. So now I'm going to take one from each side and I'm going to match them up in the center. So you'll see how those match up, and then you'll just grab one from one side and one from the other and keep matching them up until you get this zigzag formed here. And we're just going to glue this onto paper. But if you did these 1 inch strips, you end up with this really wide zigzag. But I'm doing this on a card, so I want a smaller zigzag. So I'm going to go back and actually cut these 1 inch strips in half. So let me show you here. I went and I cut all of those strips to 1/2 inch. I could have done that originally, but I wanted to show you the option. So I have all my paper cut into 1/2 inch strips, and then I have a long piece of white cardstock down there that I've covered with adhesive. So now I'm going to match them up like I was just doing before, but onto this white cardstock piece so that I can end up with a border that I'll use on the cards. So I'm taking one from one pile and one from another and matching them up, and then I'll go and add on to each side. Now you could look around at your pieces because all the little pieces are a little bit different, and some of them will match up better without having too much hanging off up at the top or at the bottom. But you just play around and they come together quite quickly. It's not like a complicated puzzle. It really matches up pretty quickly. And I've done this before, and I had my son kind of help me with it too, and it came together. And you can do quick borders for a scrapbook page, or if you want to do extra at once, you can save them for future projects too. So I'm just going to keep matching these up side for side. You can see once in a while I grab the wrong. I could flip it, but I'm just going to take it over to the other side. But there I grabbed another one so that I don't have as much hanging off the top or bottom. But you'll see the tops don't match up perfectly. You can spend some time getting the tops to match up perfectly, but I don't bother with it. I just take the center out of this border that I create. And now that I've glued them all on, I'm just going to go through and take the center out of this, like I said, and I'm just going to cut along this red zigzag here. So I end up with this complete wide border zigzag cut from the center. So I'll just cut that out. Now I'm going to go ahead and make my cards, and I'll add that border in a moment. I've printed these greetings out on my computer, and I'm just going to cut them off, and these are going to get glued to the bottom of my card. I did a variety of greetings here, and I'm going to give these cards actually as a gift set. So I've got a few kind of generic greetings here that would work for lots of different occasions. So I've formed a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch card here with the fold at the top, and I'm going to take these strips that I computer generated. They're kind of long. I'm going to cut that off in a minute, and I'm going to glue it right up against the bottom center. And once I've glued this on here, I'm just going to cut that extra off the side. It's just a really quick way to add a greeting, and it makes it look like that greeting was printed on the card, but I didn't have to bother with lining it up on my printer. So I'm just completely faking it. And I'll cover up that seam there with my border in a minute. So I cut my border in half, so I have 2 long zigzag borders here. And I'm just going to glue it right onto the card. And again, this would be great for a border on a scrapbook page too. So then I've got these great basic gray buttons. These are from one of the kits from this month. And I'm just going to tie some twine into it. I think twine's a great addition to any project because it adds a little bit of texture without too much bulk. I'm just going to tie a bow through it and add this onto the card. You could add some fun embellishments to this. You could do some of the Mr. Huey myths on the background and add a lot to this card, but I wanted to keep it kind of simple. And I'll use a glue dot to add this button to the card, but then I'll go back and squirt a strong adhesive like glossy accents behind it to make sure that it doesn't come off when we mail it. And here we have a closer look at what the final chevron pattern looks like. So this may have looked like it was kind of complicated and taken a lot of time, but once you start doing it, you'll see that it comes together quite quickly. And it's a great way to use up any scraps that you might have from your great January kits. And remember, you can use the same kind of border on any kind of scrapbook page. So thanks for watching another Studio Calico video, and I'll see you next month.